Welcome back to the Tin Man project. We've completed modeling on our Tin Man, and we're going to start in on materials and lighting and setting up our render layers. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Just a couple things about grouping and setting the pivot points. We did all the pivot points in the previous couple of lessons. And I went ahead and finished grouping the rest of the arm. Let's just take a look at what that looks like. So let's open up the left arm here. So the left arm, or arm left, is at the top of the group here. And inside that, I've got the upper arm group. And if I open that up, you can see I've got the lower arm inside of there now. And inside the lower arm, I have the hand group. So that's how you want to make sure you have your arms set up. They're all grouped together. Without that, if you select the top level and you move it, the lower pieces are not going to be attached to that. You want to make sure that they're all inside the same group here. Okay, so let's collapse that down, and also inside the torso you want to just go ahead and put the heart. We've got the heart and the glass. Put that inside the torso group and name them appropriately. Okay. And I'm just going to draw a marquee over the whole Tin Man. And then I'm going to come in here and deselect the heart and the glass. We're getting ready to apply some new shaders here. And also, we're going to have different shaders on the eyes. So I'm going to come into the head group here and just deselect the eyes. That's holding down the control key. We'll deselect. So everything else should be selected. And I'm just going to right mouse click over the object and scroll down to assign new material. And under my mental ray tab here, I'm going to select MI metallic paint. Click on that. And it's red first. Let's just come under focus and grab that shader group right there, and let's change the base color. Its default's at red. I'm just going to grab kind of a medium gray here to start with, and the lit color, which is affected by the lighting, I'm just selecting sort of a greenish gray color, something a little bit darker, and everything else in the attributes can just stay the same. And then I'm going to come up and we can grab the eyes now. And I think what I want to do is kind of separate them. We're going to have the front of the eyes black, and then we can go ahead and apply maybe even the same shader, the metallic shader we just did. So let's select the faces on the front here. And I'm going to use this select tool. It's the paintbrush. It allows you to select things on the surface. If I right mouse click and select face, the paintbrush, if I just click and drag around here, it's going to select the faces on the front. This is a nice tool because it doesn't select all the way through to the back like a marquee does. So I can just go around here and select those. I'm going to right mouse click now and assign new material and come under Maya, and we're just going to select a Fong and slide this over here. So we've got Fong, and I'm just going to call that I Fong, and change the color to black. And I'm going to put a bump map in here just to break up the surface a little bit. And we can use something like noise or cloud even. Let's try fractal. You can take the bump depth down to 0.3. So this is just going to break up the surface on there a little bit, so it's not just completely smooth. Okay, and let's hit Q on the keyboard. Come over to the other eye and select that. Paintbrush select tool. Go around here and grab the faces. Okay, and then right mouse click. Assign existing material, and in that group you should see the iFong. Just go ahead and select that. Hit Q on the keyboard. And if you right mouse click, go back to object mode. You should have black eyes now. Okay, so now that we have the eye material on, we need to add some material to the back part of the eye. So this is the only material left with our original Lambert 1 shader. So we're going to grab the faces on that. I have a shortcut to the hypershade on my shelf here. You can access it under Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. That's going to show you the materials that we have so far. Okay, so here's our Lambert 1, and if we just want to select those faces, we can right mouse click over this and say Select Objects. Okay, and you can see that it grabbed all the faces with that Lambert on it. And I'm going to assign a new material to that. So right mouse click, come under the Mental Ray, and we're going to select the same MI metallic paint. We're just going to give it a little bit different color. And we can double click on that right there. It's going to open up the attributes. Close that window down. The red's not bad. I think I'm going to push it a little bit more to a blue color. So maybe go ahead and start with a gray, and the lit color, maybe bring that a little bit more into kind of a blue range, like that. I might darken this down just a little bit. About there. Okay. So we've got the material on our eyes now, as well as the rest of the body. Let's go ahead and start lighting our scene. I'm going to just set up a real quick 3-point lighting in here, starting with an area light. So under Create Lights, just clicking Area Lights, it drops it there in the center. And I'm just going to hit W on the keyboard and kind of pull it out there so you can take a look at the area light. And you can see which direction it's pointing. The light is pointing towards him right now. If I hit T on the keyboard, that brings up another manipulator. So now what I can do is use this to aim it at him and this to position. So I actually want to kind of back it out. I'm coming over to the side here, his right side, and we can actually bring this up a little bit more to his face. And doing something about like that. So I've got it up about 45 degrees up, and if you're looking top down, we're over about 45, maybe 50 degrees over to the side. And let's come under Lighting, use Selected Lights, so now you can kind of see the angle of the light there. Alright. And what's nice about area lights, you can scale them up and they'll not only get brighter, they're just going to cover kind of a wider area. So I'm scaling it up. Over here you can see I've got it at about 8 in X, Y, and Z. And let's go under here and under the attributes for this light, I'm going to scroll down to Ray Trace Shadows and click that on. And I have shadow rays here. This is the quality of the shadow. Since I increased the scale of this, we want to bump up the rays now so it won't get so grainy. So I'm going to put about 20 in there. And the ray depth limit, 1 is a little bit too low. 2 is a little bit better number to start with, especially with the glass and stuff that we have in here. Okay, so I've got that light set up. I'm going to just hit Control D, duplicate it, hit T on the keyboard, and just swing it over to the opposite side. So now I've got one on the very opposite side. I'm going to lower it down a little bit. So this is going to fill in the shadows from the key light. We should actually name these. So we can call this key light. And the one we just duplicated is going to be our fill light. And the fill light, you usually want to have about half or less in intensity. Go ahead and drop it down. And I'm going to change the color on the fill side. I'm going to actually kind of make it a bluish color. Something like that. And this light, the key light, I'm going to warm it up and make it a little bit more yellow. right. And we should probably drop in one more light for the back. That'll be the rim light. And a really good light for that is the directional light. These are quite easy to set up. You don't actually need the two manipulators on there, so just hit W on the keyboard. And this doesn't actually have to be placed in the scene the way a spotlight or an area light does, that it has to be physically moved in space here and pointing at its subject. With directional light, you can see by default there's the arrows on it right there. It's pointing directly back. And this is the light that I have selected right now. So under my lighting, use selected lights. So you can click on the different lights. There's the fill light, and here is my directional light. So if I hit E on the keyboard and I start rotating this, you can see how the light begins to move. And I want this on the back side of him, so I'm just rotating it over to the back side. So you can see it there now. It's directly behind him. And I want to wrap it around a little bit on his right side, so I'm going to rotate it and start bringing it around to the side, about like that. So this is a little bit more of a kick light. It's not really a rim light. A rim light would be very, very thin, something like that, where you would just see a very slight sliver coming around. So I'm doing a little bit more. I'm actually wrapping it around. So we'll call this a kick light. You can call it a backlight, either or. We need to shadow it. You can see it's actually filling in this area right here, which we don't want. We want to shadow all of our lights. So under the Shape tab right here, we can come under Shadows and scroll down, use Ray Trace Shadows. So the light angle, we're going to bump that up to about 6. The number of rays, we'll take that up to 20 as well, and the ray depth limit to 2. Okay, and I'm just going to leave this white. Okay, so we've got our 3-point light rig is in there, in place. And we're going to actually bring in another light source, and this we're going to bring in under the render settings. So I just clicked on this right here to open that. And we want to make sure we're using Mental Ray for rendering. That brings up a couple more tabs right here. The first one I'm going to go under is Quality. Takes a moment to open up. And it probably defaulted as draft, so we want to change that to production. That increases the quality and sample rates. And I want to select jitter and turn off sample lock, and I'm going to change the filter over to Mitchell. It's a little bit better filter. Everything else can stay the same. And then under indirect lighting, this is a nice feature inside Mental Ray, that we can create an environment using image-based lighting. That's that first one up here on the top. I'm just going to click Create, and that's going to drop a dome inside here. You can shut this down right now. So you can see the dome that it created, and we're going to put an image inside that. We're just going to attach it. So it's over here under the Attribute Editor. We have a spherical mapping. It's the default. We're going to put an image file in there just by clicking on here. And I have a poppy field. It's an HDRI image, so you can see that it's going to wrap around here. And now you can see that in the image. If you're not seeing any of your materials, hit 6 on your keyboard, and that will bring everything up there. And 7 will show you your lighting. So we should be looking at our lighting and materials. Okay. So now that that's in there, we're not actually going to use this to render as his background environment. We're going to composite him later in Photoshop against a different background that has poppy fields in it as well, and blue sky. So you can see our sky up here with some clouds, poppy field around him. And what this is going to do is serve as another source of light, indirect lighting. And it's also going to supply us with reflections in another render pass that we're going to set up here in just a second. So in here, we we need to go back actually into our render settings and check one more thing. Under indirect lighting, we want to make sure that final gather is on. And we can bump up the accuracy to 200. We're only going to render out a couple things here, so 200 is a little bit better setting. Go ahead and close that down. Okay, and I'm going to kind of set up my camera now. If I look at the image that I'm going to composite him with, let's see, it's up one. Yeah, I've got it in my source images, and it's going to be this one right here. So I'm just kind of looking at the camera angle. It's probably up around his eyes, kind of looking down a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of adjust my camera angle here a little bit and zoom in a little, like that. And if I select the film gate right here, I can actually see what's going to render. I want to make sure the top of his hat is in there. And I don't want to be messing around with shadows on the ground, so I'm actually going to kind of take most of his feet out of there. The shadows are running this way, so I'm not going to drop the ground plane in there and do shadows for this particular render. We're just keeping this pretty basic. Okay, so this is going to be my camera, and all I'm going to do is bookmark that under Bookmarks, Edit Bookmarks, just check New. And we'll just call this Render View. It's not really a new camera, it's just a view from the perspective camera. So now if I'm in my scene moving around and I'm ready to render now, I can just click Bookmarks and it will snap it back like that. Alright, so let's go ahead and pose the character real quickly here. I'm going to open up my outliner, and under the right arm, actually let's start with the left arm. I'm going to just open up these tabs right here. I'm going to grab the lower arm group, come in here and kind of swing his arm a little bit like this. I'm going to grab the upper arm and kind of rotate it down and maybe back a little bit. Maybe drop it down just a little bit more. Okay, and inside the lower arm group, I'm going to open that up. I've got the hand group. So the hand is right here, and I think I'm probably going to bring that axe into the scene. So he's going to just have the axe kind of propped right there, or maybe leaning in his hand like that. I'll turn his hand over like that. Okay, and let's go ahead and position this one. Close that down. Open this one up. And I think we have some negative transforms on here. We do, so these are actually sliding in the opposite direction. You know, if this were going to be animated and rigged, all of that would need to get corrected, but I'm just going to pose this for one scene here and not worry about kind of correcting that little problem right there. That's from the duplicate special with the negative scale in there, did that. So grabbing the upper arm group, I'm going to rotate his arm back. So he's going to be kind of waving. And the hand group, to kind of maybe tip it out like that. And there. Okay. I'm not going to pose his legs for this scene. I'm just going to leave them as is. And we can go ahead and close that down. Okay, so now that we have that set up, I'm going to just grab this dome back here. I'm dragging a marquee and it's just selecting the dome. And I want to turn this off in the visibility under render stats. So I'm under the mental ray IBL shape 1. If I come under here, the render stats, I've got the different ways in which it would be visible. I want to turn off primary visibility. So this is just going to have it be visible in the environment. It's going to be in reflections and refractions, which is really what I want, as well as final gather. So now that I've got this layer all set up with everything in it, and he's posed, I'm going to come over to the Channel Box Layer Editor. And down here under the Render tab, we've got the master layer. See that right there? I'm going to just duplicate that. It's right mouse clicking. I'm going to copy the layer and then go ahead and copy it again. So I've got two copies. They're identical right now. We're going to change them up a little bit. I'm going to double click on the middle one here and call this reflection layer. And then I'm going to double click on the top one and call it occlusion layer. So let's set up the reflection layer first. This is just going to take a different type of material. So I'm going to drag a marquee around everything again. I don't need the light in there. So dragging a marquee around him, I'm going to deselect the eyes and deselect this as well. Going into the outliners a little quicker. Under torso, deselecting that heart. There we go. So the heart and the glass are deselected, and as well as under the head I've got the eyes deselected. All right. And I'm going to apply a new material. So we want a very reflective material for our reflection path. So under Mental Ray, I'm going to choose the MIA material. Close down our outliner. And if we come over to Focus, we can grab that group right there. And this is our, I'm going to call it MIA reflection. And under presets, we've got a bunch of nice presets here. I'm going to choose the chrome one that's highly reflective, and I'm going to replace it 100%. And it probably went black or something close to black in the scene. It's got some light hitting it, but it's not going to look like chrome in here until you render it. And let's come back to our layers here and just check. So with that selected and applying the materials, it's now part of that scene right there. So if we click on the master layer, we should see the paint material, and then the reflection layer should look like that. So the occlusion layer, let's set that up now. I'm going to click on it and then select Layers, Attributes. It's going to bring up some different attributes here, and there are presets in here. The second one down is occlusion. I'm going to select that. Probably went black like that, which is what we want. Okay, come back to our channels here. So we're pretty much ready to go. I'm going to come under my View, Bookmarks, select the bookmark I set up. I'm going to start with the master layer, clicking on that, and I'm going to click Render. All right. So it's even going to tell you down here the camera perspective, the time, and the layers is the master layer. You'll see that up here as well. Make sure you're using Mental Ray. Okay, if you didn't use Mental Ray, it may have just completely disappeared because we're using Mental Ray shaders. So you want to make sure that that is on and not Maya software, which is usually the default. Okay, so we've got our first layer. I'm going to just save it in the buffer right now, clicking this, so you can see it saved down here. And I'm going to come over to here and click on my reflection layer. We saw the material change, and I'm going to render that now. Okay, just finishing up there. That took a little bit longer. So there's our reflection layer. I'm going to save that into the buffer. So now we've got both of these. And come back over here, click on the occlusion layer. This should render pretty quickly. This is just mostly white with a little bit of shadowing. That's pretty much what we're after. This is going to be dropped in for the shadow areas. I see one little problem here. The glass needs to be turned off for this layer. So you can actually just come up here and type 0 in there and just turn it off. So there's our occlusion layer. I'm going to save that. And let's go ahead and save out all three of these. Under File, Save Image. I'm going to say Tin Man Occlusion, OCC, and saving that out as a PNG file type. And Over to the next one for our reflection, file, save image, Tin Man, reflection, just REF in there is fine. And this one here, save that image out. DIF for diffuse, save that. And we pretty much have everything in here now, so we can go ahead and open up Photoshop. And I'm going to open those files up. There they are. I saved them out into my images directory in my project folder. So I'm just grabbing all three of those. And we also need the background. So I think I have the background in my source images directory. There it is. It's the poppy field with the flowers and the sign in it and a road. Okay, so I'm just going to start with my diffuse layer. I'm going to just hit Control A. It's going to select everything, and then Control C will copy it. I'm going to come back over to the road here and just hit Control V, and that's going to paste it in there. And I'm going to select the reflection one next, so Control A, Control C to copy it, come over to the background, and Control V. So we've got that layer in there now. And to the occlusion layer, Control A, Control C, and Control V to pop that on top there. All right, let me just zoom in here a little bit, see better. Okay, so we've got all of those in there. You can name them in here if you want. Occlusion, reflection, and diffuse. All right. So let's start with the occlusion layer. I'm going to click on that, and we don't want this coming in as normal. We want to actually multiply that on top. So if you kind of change the opacity here, you can see what it's doing. It's adding shadows, some shadow detail in there. So I'm going to leave mine at about 75%. And then the next one down, the reflections, that can stay as normal, but we don't want it at 100%. We want to bring it down quite a bit. Maybe 40%. Our diffuse layer is going to stay at 100%. It's feeling just a little bit dark. This is a very well lit scene right here, so I'm going to come under Image, just make some adjustments to the exposure. So I'm going to bring the exposure up, maybe +2. And the gamma correction, let's take the gamma to 1.2. Hit OK. So that's sitting in our scene a little bit better. Okay, and then if we want to position that a little bit differently, I can Shift Select, grab all of these right here, and hit Control T on the keyboard. And that's going to allow me, if I hold the Shift key down, it's going to scale uniformly, and I can kind of position him out here a little differently. Again, I'm kind of keeping his feet out of the scene here intentionally. Maybe just zoom him in a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to have to deal with the shadow here. I mean, we should technically be seeing his shadow cutting across right here. That would require putting in a ground plane and casting shadows on that ground plane. It's not a difficult thing to do. I just didn't do it for this scene here. So I just double-clicked on there. And I think our reflection pass, something's getting kind of overlit here. I feel like the color on the heart kind of got a little washed out. That might be something I go back and adjust a little bit later. Can also be adjusted in here. You could go in and paint on top if you want with a red color. And a paintbrush, you could just add another layer in there. I'm going to drop it in on top of the diffuse. And if I just zoom in here, you can just kind of paint a little bit on top. Like that. You can even put some highlights in there. Like so. And just zoom back out here. And that's pretty much our scene. So hope you enjoyed it. This is the end of our Tin Man project. And I hope you guys all had fun with it.